Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. When you hear the term, "don't mess with Texas," surely littering doesn't come to mind. In the late 80s, Texas had a 20 million trash problem. The highways were being littered with junk. Bubbas in pickup trucks were tossing stuff out of the window as they drove by, and the cost of cleaning up the litter was going up by 17% every year. And it's not like the Texas Department of Transportation didn't try to stem that litter problem. The highways were filled with signs like, "Keep Texas beautiful," but that plea fell on deaf ears. Tim McClure, whose advertising agency was in charge of creating change, felt that they were stuck. We thought the way to get into the public's consciousness was for Texans to own it. I don't think that they would have put something that said, "Don't litter Texas." One day, in a moment of inspiration, he came up with the phrase, "Don't mess with Texas." In 1985, the ad campaign got off the ground, and it said, of course, "Don't mess with Texas." So they had bumper stickers, they had an advertisement during the Cotton Bowl, and in the ad, guitarist Stevie Ray Vaughan played "The Eyes of Texas." And he played it in front of a giant Lone Star flag.
Each year, we spend over $20 million picking up trash along our Texas highways. Messing with Texas isn't just an insult to the Lone Star State, it's a crime.
Don't mess with Texas.
The ad was instantly a hit, so much so that the Department of Transportation were able to get tons of celebrities to sign up. They were all volunteers for future ads. Many musicians also called the agency, and they asked to appear in the ad as well. Suddenly, a message that seemed very instructional, almost boring, became extremely interesting. Music, celebrity, fun, that's what created the change. When we write a book, when we create a workshop, or even when we do a Zoom call, we're not looking to simply give more information. What we're seeking to create is a factor of lasting change. Yet, we go about it in the most boring manner. We know that we're in dire need of creating some factor of entertainment, but we're not sure where to start. A few questions pop up almost immediately. They are, and these are the 3 points for today's podcast. So what are the 3 points? When do you add entertainment to your messaging? How much is enough? How much is too much? And why does the factor of entertainment become crucial in creating this change? Let's begin with the first one, which is, when do you add entertainment to your messaging? When do you put the cherry on top of the cake? If you answered right at the beginning, you'd be considered strange. The cake doesn't exist. How can you put the cherry on top? Yet, that's the method that many of us tend to use when we're creating some level of entertainment in our books, in our webinars, in our courses. We expect that the entertainment factor will somehow come very early or pop up during the process of making the cake. Instead, the entertainment factor is almost always later, almost once you're done. The process of creating any information is tiring. It always feels exhausting. You spend a lot of time trying to get your thoughts together, and then it's time to put those ideas in some sort of structure. That's how it feels for me as a writer at this very moment. As I'm writing these words, as I'm saying these words, I have to think, and it's a tiring process. So I'm going back and forth in my brain, and often on the keyboard. And I want to go at this warp speed, but instead I'm going bit by bit, formulating stuff, speaking out stuff on the podcast. And to try and put in entertainment at this point in time is bizarre. To try and put in the music, to try and factor in something different, interesting, is bizarre. It overburdens me. It slows me down, and you don't want to do that. However, once the draft is finished, once the ideas are down on paper, it's at this point that the writer can add bits of entertainment to their work. Entertainment could be the very same ideas as sketches, illustrations, or cartoons. They could be stories or case studies that relate to that topic that's being explained. However, if the medium involves audio or video, entertainment could also be the music. It could be the tone that I'm taking right now. That was over the top. But it could be that. It could be the speed at which you speak. You can speak really quickly or slow down and say something at a much slower pace. So it allows the viewer or the listener or the reader to slightly get distracted, to just give them some space, to make them smile a bit. Let's take an example of how I go about creating a presentation for a workshop. At first, I'll outline the 3 points that I want to cover, and I only cover 3. I'll go to the cafe, then I'll scribble on a piece of paper. I'll make tons of boxes because we use this 13-box system for presentations. Then I'll put those rough ideas into the boxes. And that is how the first stage of the ideation begins. I never strike gold in the first sweep. It's never like, I'm done. Okay, I've gone to the cafe, had my coffee, done all those boxes, I'm done. No, it doesn't work like that. For the information products course, I went through about 16 drafts before I could get my head around figuring out how I wanted to present the information. Was it going to go as day 1, day 2, day 3? Was day 2 really day 2, or was day 3 day 2? All of this jumbling took a lot of energy and a lot of drafts. It was a slow, head-banging process, and usually I come back just drinking a lot of coffee and making very little progress. I'm not thinking of entertainment at this point in time. I'm just thinking, how do I get these random thoughts on paper? Now, sometimes you'll get some ideas and you go, oh, we could do this here, or I could put that there. However, the bulk of the cherry picking needs to come once you're sure of where you're going. With an article, a single draft may be enough to make sure which direction you're going. With a presentation, maybe you need 16 drafts. However, once you've got that flow, the brain is relaxed. You've done that draft. It's over. You don't feel that pressure on your shoulders. Now you can add bits and pieces that make the work more entertaining. This is usually when I add the cartoons. I'll add some video or animation. And when I sit down to write, like when I sat down to write the brain audit, I thought of adding a recipe, sometimes a whole page of cartoons. And let's not discount the stories or case studies. When you heard that story about Don't Mess with Texas, that was a form of entertainment, something that probably you weren't aware of. But it formed that little distraction for you. And then the music came in, and all of these little bits, they make a big difference to how you perceive audio or video or text. And in most cases, it is better to just wait for the first draft to get in before you start putting that cherry on top, after everything is done. So this is crucial, that you don't think of entertainment when you're doing something, even though you want to put in entertainment. You do it right at the end. This takes us to our second part, which is, do you have enough entertainment, or is there too much of entertainment? How much is enough? How much is too much? When we refer to the English alphabet, you use the term as easy as ABC. Yet, if you were to watch a child learning the first few letters, there's nothing easy about it. There's labored progress as the child heads from A to B, and then stays inordinately long at the second letter before going to C. And in between the bouts of learning, the child often naps or plays. When slightly overwhelmed, the brain will want to slip into play mode. It seeks some sort of break, some sort of escape from the new concepts that are being introduced. Even if the concepts are quite simple, like where's the cherry on top? You put it at the end. Even if that concept is relatively simple, they still need a break, which is where entertainment comes right in. So if you're writing a book or a booklet, there is no reason why you can't have a few illustrations that break up the text. Now, the illustrations, they provide a visual aspect of the very same matter, but it also allows the tired mind to linger a bit and just do nothing for a while. A story or a case study is also a form of relaxation for the mind, and also the sidebar, like a big gray box in your text, and it does not have to relate to anything. It does not have to relate to whatever you've been writing. The sidebar is the sidebar. It's like going to a bar and having a little party there. It doesn't have to be quite so serious. But how much of this entertainment is too much? Usually, it's best to follow a simple formula. And the formula for just about any writing is to answer a bunch of questions. And the questions are what, why, how, when, etc. And then you have an example or two, and I'll give you an example. So let's say you have a concept like why the problem is more important than the solution. Now you have what is the problem? Why is it more important than the solution? How do we know for sure that the brain is more attracted to the solution? Isn't it kind of negative to bring up the problem all the time? And it's this point that the reader has got the idea and they know approximately where you're going, not quite sure, but they know. And they're looking for something now. They're looking for some relief, some case study, some example, because they've got that new concept. They need a bit of a break. And one or two examples are more than enough. And the same goes for any illustrations or any kind of entertainment. There is no precise ratio, but it would be safe to say that once you pushed a bit of information through, having a bit of entertainment is the only sensible way forward. It's also fair to say that it helps the learning process much better than an endless amount of information. So there you go. Imprecise data, but one or two examples, that's enough. Don't overdo it. We started this podcast with the cherry on top. Well, you know how it works. It comes last, but we started it that way. And then we looked at how much is enough. And one or two examples, they're more than enough. Finally, we get to the third point, and that is, why is entertainment so important? Well, we know it's important, but why is it important? When you read or listen to the news today, most of it is likely to be useless to you, worthless. You are curious to know what's happening in the world around you, but it comes in one ear and goes out the other. And when you watch a movie, you're seeking to be entertained. And in situations where the information is nice, curious, but not valid or not interesting enough for you to implement, well, it's just in one ear and out of the other. When you get on a Zoom call, for instance, you're in a presentation, you're reading a book, or you're doing anything that requires you to think through because you're going to apply it, well, now you're going to need some change. A reader wants to change the way he or she does things. Hence, the goal of the writer is, or should be, to create change. Maybe temporary change or lasting change, but change is the goal. And since every kind of information is tiring, you are just increasing the abandonment rate by providing more information. And that's the opposite of the goal of the writer. If the client won't read your book, they nod off during your presentation, you're not getting across. And if you're not getting across, you're making little or no change. It's one thing to think of information as important. It's quite another to intersperse information with entertainment so that the reader keeps going. Will it guarantee change? There's no guarantee that the client will make any changes if they get to the end of your book or your presentation or your Zoom call. But you're ramping up the likelihood if they're interested, if they're engaged. Even entertainers know this to be true. I was once at a concert by Sting. The content, if you want to call it that, it wasn't difficult. Everyone in the audience is usually there because they know and they like Sting's music. And yes, Sting will play some of the obscure songs that he likes and he and only I like, but, the general audience has no clue what's happening. But by and large, the entertainer knows that they have to play the hits. They have to play the hits and the audience already knows the lyrics. Now, do you detect any kind of difficulty in this scenario? You're playing the music, they know the music, they know when it changes, they know all the lyrics or most of the lyrics. Even so, musicians will take time to add some entertainment. Some will put on a full-on dance routine, even though it's incidental to their music. And if you take an entertainer like Sting, who's not dancing and jumping but standing there with a stool probably, well, he's going to have to entertain you as well. And he does so by telling stories in between the songs. And these stories might be about the song itself. It might be some other interesting stories. The audience isn't there to listen to the stories, but they appreciate the break. A similar sort of phenomenon shows up with documentaries by David Attenborough. Even though the documentaries are quite easy to watch, people love the parts like the making of the movie, the making of the documentary. They want to see how things are done in the background. What troubles did the film crew run into? How did they shoot that particular scene? What technology is being used to shoot that cheetah in so much detail? These don't fall into the entertainment, let's laugh, let's joke, let's dance category. But they are entertainment, and they are little bits that people look forward to. When things get rough or boring or just a bit long, you need to let people have a baby nap or just play a bit. And that keeps them engaged longer, and that brings them back to learn a bit more. In effect, you're an agent of change instead of just dumping more information on your clients. And with that, we come to the end of this podcast. Let's find out what we covered in the last 16 to 18 minutes. Three points. The first is first prepare the cake. So you think of the cake, then you think of the cherry on top, and the cherry comes last. You're not trying to go and put that cherry on top. You're not trying to put the entertainment as you're writing stuff. That's already hard. So do it at the end. If something comes in between, that's fine. But usually the entertainment needs to be done after you've done one draft, or in my case, 16 drafts. The second thing is how much is too much. And even with entertainment, one story is fine. The second story, that's fine too. And then after that, nobody wants to hear your stories anymore. Nobody wants the case studies anymore. And, when I've done that before, Renuka, my wife, she'll be listening to the podcast and go, "You already told 2 stories. Why are you telling me the third one?" And she'll do this while we're on a walk early every morning. And I have to apologize. So, yes, a couple of stories or one, like I just slipped in, that's good enough. And finally, take yourself more seriously. You're creating content, you're creating information, and you're doing so because you want to affect change. You aren't just writing another dictionary and chucking it at people. You're not just throwing loads of information. And so you have to have, or should have, entertainment because that increases consumption. People are more likely to go through the page, the chapter, the end of the book, if it's a book that we're talking about, but it applies to anything else, including Sting's concert. it's more fun, it's more entertaining. And that's what it's all about, Tum Tum. And on that note, let's go to what's happening in Psychotactics land. One of the big things is, well, we're calling it big, but it's actually the exact opposite. And it's the Piccolo series. And Piccolo in Italian means small. So we're going to do a series on, say, article writing. And instead of going through the whole article writing course, we'll just cover one aspect of it. We don't know what aspect yet because that's how I go about things. First, the idea. You expand that idea, put in the entertainment later, whatever. But we're going to do those series, and you want to watch out for it, so you have to be on the Psychotactics newsletter. And as far as products go, on the 4th of March, we have the uniqueness course. Now, you and I know that there are thousands of products out there, and each one is trying to say the same thing, probably trying to sell the same thing, or something very similar. The problem is that they're not able to define their uniqueness. And if you can't say why you are different or better, then you can't get that message across. We struggled with the article writing course. We had to do loads of marketing until we defined it differently. And now we have no problem filling up the course. I mean, we have an article writing course at the end of this year, and usually in 24 hours or 24 minutes, it'll fill up. There is scarcity. There are lots of other factors. But people also know, why am I paying so much more for this course versus something that I can get for $200 or $20 or even free sometimes? And there are goodies. So go to psychotactics.com/ugoodies. That's U as in UVWXYZ. So once again, psychotactics.com/ugoodies, and you'll get your goodies. And that's pretty much it from me in Psychotactics land. Bye-bye. Still listening? I don't know whether you've been following the news, but New Zealand has had enormous amounts of rain. And here's the story. I have a friend whose name is Quinn, and he's a fireman. Now, there is a fire station called the Takapuna Fire Station. And Quinn is at the Takapuna Fire Station, and he told me this story. And he said that it started raining. It started raining about 4 o'clock or something like that. And nobody thought much of it. And then it was 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. It's still raining, but now it's bucketing down and roads are getting flooded and, you have landslides in the city and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, what's happening at the fire station? They're getting hundreds, maybe thousands of calls. And so the fire truck, which is in the Takapuna Fire Station, it darts out to help these people. And when it returns, they find that the fire station is flooded. That's my entertaining story for you for this week. We'll see you in 5000 BC. You know where that is, 5000bc.com. Check it out. Bye-bye.